Okay, Kipsters. So, we introduced percents yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about how to make a fraction, any fraction, into a percent. It's easy to make a percent into a fraction. We've talked about that before. But first, the color of the day. We're going with purple. So here we go. Just to review, percent quickly means out of 100, a fraction whose denominator is 100. Percent can only speak one language, and that language, as we all know, is hundredths. To make a percent into a fraction, you just put it over 100 and reduce. Okay, 75%, 75 over 100. 10%, 10 over 100. Okay, but to make a fraction into a percent, you must make a proportion using hundredths, and we've done this before with decimals. I actually think this is a little bit easier with percents. It's a three-step process that we've done before. What is 4/5 as a percent? Okay, so the third grade is going to be like, so I see a 4 and I see a 5, so it must be 45%. No way. You need to think before you just start writing down numbers. 4/5, if you have a test that's 5 questions long, you get 4 of them right, you didn't get a 45%, you probably did pretty well. How well? Well, here's one way to figure it out. The three-step process starts with step 1, writing a proportion. So we have 4/5. We wanted to speak a percent language. The only percent language is 100ths. What letter you put up here? Well, I'm putting a J because that's my first name, Joe. So, step 1, set up the proportion, make it speak hundredths. Step 2 is cross multiplying. We've done this before. So, 4 times 100, simple, that's 400, equals 5 times J. We just write that simply as 5J. And then finally, step 3 is the division. We're going to solve and figure out what J is. So we put 5 outside the house, 400 inside the house. Not enough. Back up. Give the man a seat. Count by 5. Don't pass up 40. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Stop. Finger says 8 and 8 pops up. Mouse says 40 and a 40 goes down. Hook the line. Subtract. Subtract, subtract, subtract. That's 0. Some people stop there and think, oh, the answer must be 8. 8%. No, you still have shades to pull down. You do not stop dividing until you have finished pulling down all your shades. So then we pull down the shade. Every time we pull down the shade, we must count by 5. Don't pass up 0. 5. Oops. 0. So, finger says 0 and a 0 pops up. Mouse says 0 and a 0 goes down. Hook the line, subtract, 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 subtract. Now we're done. We found out, and we go back in here, find out that J equals 80, which means that 4/5 equals 80 over 100. We just made it speak a percent language, which means that 4/5 as a percent is 80%. So, let's see what that looks like in a word problem. So I'm going to change my color up for a second. Go to a more pinkish color, I guess. Cool. This problem's about Mr. Willie. An imaginary Kipster in Mr. Willie's class took their spelling test and got 3 out of 20. Yikes. What percent of the test did they get correct? So automatically you're thinking, well, you got 3 out of 20, that's probably not that good. But let's take the 3 steps and figure out what it is. We said step 1. In this case, 3 out of 20, well, there you have it, 3 out of 20. We want to make this into a percent. There's only one language to make it speak, that's hundredths. Letter on the top, I'll pick F for Miss Facilla. Okay, step 2. Cross multiply. Again, not too difficult. 3 times 100, that's 300. 20 times F, that's 20F. And finally, running out of room over here, but Step 3 is the division. This time 20 is outside the house. 300 is inside the house. 300 divided by 20. Got enough. I'm sorry, cover up. Got enough. No, back up. Got enough. Yes, give the man a seat. Count by 20, don't pass up 30. 20, 40, oops. 20. Finger says 1 and a 1 pops up. Mouth says 20 and a 20 goes down. Hook the line, subtract what? Subtract, subtract, subtract. Got the 0 here, got the 1 here. And then we pull down the shade. Every time we pull down the shade, we must count by 20. Don't pass up 100. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Stop. My finger said 5, so a 5 pops up. My mouth said 100 and 100 goes down. Hook the line, subtract, 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 subtract. I get all zeros here, which means in this case F equals 15. So again, we made a fraction, 3 over 20, into a percent language, 15 over 100, which means this kipster got 15% of the test correct. Now, what if they ask you, what percent of the test did they get wrong? Well, they got 15% of the test correct, so that's important information to know. 15% correct. One way to figure out what percent they got wrong is to subtract it from the total. And you know, on any test, the total is going to be 100%. So if you subtract those two, okay, 0 minus 5, nope. Go next door and borrow. Uh-oh, got a 0, got to go next door and borrow again. Scratch it, make it smaller and pull 1 to my side. Scratch it, make it smaller and pull 1 to my side. Okay, so I got 10 minus 5, that's 5. 9 minus 1, that's 8. So that means it says they got 85% wrong. And there was a small blunder here. It said the imaginary kipster, the question said what percent did they get wrong. So the imaginary kipster got 85% of the test wrong. So a kipster named Saul, who I believe is in Worcester, came up with this great idea of, well, how do you know when you have to do this extra subtraction step? Okay, and he said, if the question's ever asking for the opposite, so if it uses the word not, or it says, in Mr. Willie's class I got this many correct, how many did they get wrong? If it ever uses the opposite, then you got to do your 3 steps, but then you also have to remember to subtract from 100%. So those are some of the different ways in which you'll see how to figure out how to go from a fraction to a percent.